Hello and welcome, Exiles, to the fourth build of the 10 Div Challenge, which is a Animate Weapon Guardian. Now, the concept for this character is make an Aura bot and combine it with a minion build. I'm not great at minion builds, I don't know them too well, but this, I think, turned out decently in the grand scale of things of what I've seen. I haven't really looked up too many minion builds, so feel free to make your own comparisons if you know minions well and you keep up with how good those characters are. This is 10 div of gear. What I prioritize cost-wise, I got a 40C plus 2 minion ivory tower, and I spent a little bit of currency making a plus 2 wand. The fracture of minion attack speed or minion crit or minion damage, they aren't too expensive if you get a lower tier of those. And then all you need to do is make sure you have a wand that is item level 82 or lower, and then do corroded, metallic, and I believe it is shuddering fossil, and this is roughly like a 1 in 12, I believe, roughly around there to get this outcome. It's not that expensive to get a plus 2 wand, and it will carry you quite well, even if it is on the lower end of crafting power. Also on top of that, animated lingering blades have plus crit, so I figured I'm going to go crit with my animate weapon because this node exists. I don't have anything too special anywhere else, just some generic whatever nodes, but the basic thing is I just wanted the plus 1.5 base crit because I want to try to make a crit base minion, and we actually end up getting quite a lot of base crit. We get base crit here, we get base crit from Brittle, we get base crit from Assassin's Mark. Technically we could have gotten base crit on this node. I think there's a tier 2 node that gives you like 0.8 base crit or something like that, and maybe it's more or less, I can't remember. But the point is we have a lot of base crit, and then on top of that, how are we scaling these minions? Well, we're doing it with a bit of damage on the tree, things like Lord of the Dead, things like the Righteous Army, Redemption Cluster, some minion nodes here, some minion nodes here. If we can, we try to get minion Abyssal Jewels with the percent damage if you used a minion skill recently. That's usually a pretty good node to go for. It's not the greatest in percent damage minion scaling, we're just working with what we have, and then on top of that, we're doing a bunch of auras. So for example, our Hatred, we're doing Fizz to Cold conversion with these guys because they're base Fizz. Our Hatred, we have almost 200% aura effect on this. I'll go through it, but we have Generosity, which gives you 44. We have this shield, which gives 44 aura effect to our minions. We have this thing, which gives 15. And then on top of all that, we get 10% from our Ascendancy. We get 20%, and then 30% once you count the Mastery. We get another 16% from our Balbala Jewel here. We get 12% here. I think it's around 18% here. No, 16% here. Point is, we have a lot of aura effect all stacking together on our Hatred to get a very powerful Hatred on our minions that helps scale the damage. I had a hard time coming up with sockets for this build because you need 4 green sockets for full Fizz to Cold conversion, and I decided a Generosity support would be more powerful than having another random green link which does nothing for our character, and that's what I ended up opting for. And then on top of that, the other auras we go for are Haste and Precision. We have a bunch of aura effects, so Haste and Precision are actually giving quite a lot of speed and accuracy. One of the hard things I believe with minions is accuracy. I don't know, I didn't really POB this stuff, so I don't know if I'm actually accuracy capped or not. I just think I'm maybe close to it, just because I'm giving close to, oh, it's got to be close to, well, what's my accuracy rating on my character with this thing on? Let me check real quick here. Does it say 2400 accuracy? If I take off this precision, I go to 500. So it's close to 2000 accuracy rating this precision is giving me, which is a lot. I don't know what the base precision of minions are. I don't know how hard it is to cap minions, but I feel like that's got to help a lot. And it's got percent crit. And then we're also doing a spirit offering to get crit chance and crit multi. So we're all scaling these things into this crit focus. And then I'm also capping my own res and my minions res with Purity of Elements, along with giving us elemental immunities. What I noticed from this was basically my minions never die, never die, never die. And then if I were to mark a big boss like an Uber and then run a mile away and watch them tank a massive attack, they would die at that point. So note to self is capping res with a aura. It works 99% of the time, and then the 1% of the time I was marking the boss to run away like a little pansy, I noticed they would die because I wasn't there capping their res, and that was somewhat of an issue. Outside of that, we also did a triple curse, Frostbite, Elemental Weakness, and Assassin's Mark. I got this via the Anathema ring. It's a pretty cheap ring that essentially makes your max curses equal to your max power charges. At base, it essentially says +2 max curses because normally you have 3 maximum power. I think at that rate, that's very good. Most builds, 3 curses are their tops. Some builds can get 4 or even 5 if you start looking at defensive curses. But +2 2 curses with double elemental curses and Assassin's Mark, I think was a ton of damage, and I have that on an Arcanist brand setup. So whenever I had those on bosses, it was a massive damage boost, and it saves us a lot in investment into things like additional curse, or I'm guessing a +1 curse Jinx Juju would probably be expensive, and not only that, it would brick my dex and my strength, and I would need to get some more dex and strength elsewhere if I did that. So I think this is a pretty good ring to speak of. Now, one of my main takeaways from this build is, man, this character deals a lot of damage without really being that highly invested. But on top of that, does it feel pretty bad to play? Absolutely. The issue with Animate Weapon is it takes forever to get these minions summoned. So the process for summoning them is I am essentially casting Ethereal Knives, and then I am summoning these blades. Now, I have an 18 maximum, but you'll notice here, my character stops casting after I cast 2, and that's because the Animate Weapon cost me 58 mana. Now, I have a cost reduction on my flask and from this node here, 10%. So I have 35% cost reduction, and it still costs 58 mana. It's ridiculously expensive. Ultimately, if I had a few more sockets, I could also fit in something like Clarity on my life pool, and that would probably solve this issue by itself, because we have such high aura effect. A high level Clarity with high aura effect is a ton of regen for your mana. But even then, no Clarity, it's not PoE 2, we don't have that option, and it means while we start our map, we have this huge ramp time. Now, it's fine for mapping, because you know, maps aren't that difficult, and you're just cruising along as you go. You summon a few minions, and they just start knocking things down, right? That works fine. The problem is if you go to fight bosses that have bad reentries. And by bad reentries, I mean you enter the boss fight and you're in a screwed scenario. I'm talking Uber Exarch. Uber Exarch has a bunch of ground degens. He could spawn a Minotaur that will start attacking your minions before you move. He could pre-aim basically an annihilation where you're standing. Point is, the second you enter the arena, you are in the fight, and you have to start from ground zero to try to get these minions alive and on the ground to start dealing damage to the boss. So fights Exarch, Eater, and Maven, which I consider hard re-entries because you're going and you're straight in the fight the second you re-enter. I failed all 3 of those. Granted, I should have succeeded on Eater because I just horribly misplayed that. I should frankly have done that without dying, to be honest, but that's neither here nor there. Point is, this character has a ton of damage and a ton of power if you're able to have your guys set up. That way, if you make a misplay and you die once and you can reset them up, you can reset them up for Shaper, you can reset them up for Uber Elder, you can reset them up for Cirrus. If you make a misplay in one of those fights and you die to something stupid, well, you can still come back in at full force. But Exarch, Eater, Maven, you come back in, you're in the fight, and it's very hard to get up and running again. That being said, this is one of the first times I've had a 10D build not only do Cirrus, but I did Cirrus Deathless. One of my other takeaways are minions are kind of OP in Cirrus because they tell you where Cirrus is. I realized the hardest part about Cirrus fight is not really knowing where he is. I know technically if you're good enough, it's like reacting and seeing it. There's like a little bit of a visual that tells you where he teleports to. I'm pretty bad at seeing that usually, so I pretty much never know where he is. And the hardest thing for me is knowing if he's over on this side of me, do I dodge this way, or I dodge this way or this way? Because a lot of times I end up dodging like straight into his beam because I don't know where he's die beaming me from, and that's one of the most hard things. But with minions, you just see all the minions trail off to the screen to go track down where he is. And weirdly enough, I did a Deathless Uber Cirrus, and it felt really easy. And I just realized now one of the hardest things about that fight is just not knowing where the hell Cirrus is, funnily enough. Also, this is a little side note. For my Spectres, I got this Crush Claw dude, this Frenzy guy, and this Pale Seraph. This is just some Spectres that some people recommended to me. They said this guy does a 25 cold res debuff. They said this guy makes people take increased damage. I was just taking tips from people who play minion characters. I don't know much about them. That's just the ones I went with. And I will say this. I think it's this guy that makes the noise, but listen to this. It's just this constant little in the background. I didn't know what was making this, but I was just like, kept randomly hearing things. I'm like, am I going crazy? No, it's this guy just makes a lot of like random noises while he's in your hideout. Like it's like freaking ghosts haunting you or something. I gotta be honest, I think in the future, if I do a build with Spectres, I'm not gonna include this guy just because it was annoying me because I kept hearing it and it kept like, I don't know, it's just this constant noise while you're in your hideout trying to check your stash and stuff. I'm sure there's probably Spectres that make more annoying noises, but that was, it was bothering me. What are my other takeaways from playing a minion character? or mana is kind of a problem. I thought the problem with Animate Weapon was going to be my cast speed, so I went into all this haste and all this other cast speed elsewhere, and it ended up just being that I was bottlenecked on mana. So mana was a problem. Socket pressure is insane, especially considering I was doing an Aura bot combined with a minion character. So I'm imagining PoE 2 comes around with a new socket system. It's going to feel amazing, but right now it feels like kind of crappy. And then outside of that, the defenses feel decent on this character. We have 50,000 armor. We have capped res, -1 cast res. It's just kind of in the middle there. And then on top of all of that, we have decent regen. What's my regen at? My regen's about 1,300. Give or take if we've been hit recently or we're standing still, that also changes the number. But it's pretty good sustain. And then our minions taunt as well. So usually the enemies aren't even targeting us. The one thing I would say to take this further, like more of a min-max thing, and this is where you start to gear for, is probably forcing in suppression. Or if we just had the ability to add more sockets, getting Molten Shell, getting Frost Shield, all of a sudden I could consistently tank the Shaper Death Ball phase. Stuff like that would go a long way in the character quality of life. My main takeaway is, man, this character is going to be strong in PoE 2. We'll see how that frames out. But anyways, without further ado, I'll give you guys a showcase of a map real quick here. I think... who do I not have done? Let's do, I don't know, Baron or something, just to showcase what this build looks like on a full map. And then we'll call it for the character. Hopefully you guys are enjoying my take on a minion character. I just want to preface this with, I'm not a minion guy. I don't play them very much. I'm not a particularly big fan of their playstyle. But hopefully maybe this can show you that even if you don't know what the hell you're doing, you can still make a strong character with minions, because they are quite strong at baseline if you just put a few nodes into minion damage, a few nodes into some auras, and you're cooking. That was my idea. That was my plan. That's what I went with. All right, let's go ahead and do this cemetery map real quick here, and I'll just showcase what this looks like. Now, for clearing, I have gathered that multi-strike sucks for clearing, and so does meat shield, and instead I would use feeding frenzy and melee splash and just swap these for bosses. I think ultimately if I was just doing this character on a bunch of maps, I probably wouldn't swap these in unless I want to do like really single target damage, because they have enough damage for most things. So if we're starting off the map, it's pretty simple. We just start out summoning the blades, and then we let them do the heavy lifting of killing everything, while our main focus is simply to get our blades summoned initially. You technically, like, if I wanted to make this process a little bit faster, I could start out with Hatred not reserved, so that way I can go and I can spend a couple hundred mana and get the minions out quicker and make it a bit less of a process summoning things. I just realized too I have the sound effects off just because I was trying not to listen to the Spectre in my hideout. And that's maybe too loud. That's maybe louder than I want. Okay. Anyways, so this is... It's a minion player. I'm not particularly a fan of it per se, but it's just, I walk around, I summon things, I occasionally proc Spirit Offering, and then they do all the work. I don't know. I'm just not a minion, guys. I feel so helpless or whatever. I'm just the dude coming around summoning things. I'm just an aura bot, basically. I'm just the aura bots, and the animate weapons are the main character. It feels wrong, but regardless of that, we're just chilling, walking through. They run around and killing everything. It's not the greatest for clear. It's not the most OP, especially with the initial ramp time, but it's fine. I guess my takeaway from this is I'm not a big fan of Animate Weapon in terms of like how long the ramp time of getting going is and stuff, because that seems a little bit annoying to me. But you can see they can kill bosses just fine without the better support gems, and then when I get to a boss, then I go and I swap in the better support gems, and I can obviously do that, and then they melt the boss. So, like, it works. The initial part, though, where you're, like, just getting the minions going and stuff, I don't know, man. It feels so weird. I'm not a minion guy. Maybe this feels better on, like, a permanent minion versus a one minion you have to summon, where you don't have the issues with the re-entry sucking and stuff like that. I don't really know. I just tried Animate Weapon. My takeaway is I don't like the play style. I'm not a minion guy. It's not fun to re-enter, but holy crap, it does some unfair levels of damage and super easy to boss if you have the minions up. But that's a big if, because you could die in the boss fight, and if you have to re-enter, you're gonna have a bad time. Anyways, that's my video. That's my attempt at a minion character. I don't think anyone mentioned it. I gloss over it, but Traitor Keystone. I know there's gonna be a lot of people that meme on me and say Traitor every build, but it is literally, in my opinion, the best way to do low life. And if I want to do a character that is an aura based character, going low life is simply the best. Low life gets you one, it gives you about 20% aura effect, and it's really efficient for doing a flat based mana reservation like precision, like vitality, as well as all of that. It gives you more reservation because you can reserve your life pool for basically another 50% reservation. And quite frankly, this is just such an easy thing to do. You can have really high flask uptime, and you get pretty much the flasks you need, which is movement speed, plus 2 other flasks for resistances or quality of life. I have mana cost, and it works out pretty well. Not only that, these duels can also have aura effect, and we're getting like 16% aura effect here. So it works quite well with our build that's stacking aura effect and crit on minions. So anyways, that is my video for my Animate weapon, Guardian. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. As always, take care. And if I didn't mention it, I went 4 out of 7. I lost to Exarch, Eater, and Maven. Every boss I had to re-enter where it sucked. And I dominated all the fights where I could set up my minions. I did Uber Cirrus for the first time, Deathless on a 10D build, so that was kind of cool. Anyways, as always, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Take care, Exiles, and peace out.